Hello one and all, my name is Ryan Bruce. My friends call me Fluff, and today on Riffs, Beards, and Gear, we are going to check out the brand new Orion 32 Plus Gen 4 audio interface from Antelope Audio. So about a year ago, I did a video on the Orion 32 Plus Gen 3, which at that point had been out for quite a while. That wasn't a new interface, but it was new to me because I just upgraded to it and I was excited about it. However, come back a year and a half later to right now, and I get to check out the Orion 32 Plus Gen 4, the new from Antelope Audio. And before we go any further, Antelope has sent me the Orion 32 Plus Gen 4. I am also an Antelope artist. I work with them in my professional capacity here on the channel, as well as all the audio stuff I do outside of this channel. However, all thoughts and opinions are still mine. Now, when it comes to flagship interfaces, I think the Orion 32 Plus is really the bread and butter of the Antelope stable. Now, they have a lot of really nice interfaces. I've had several of them on this channel. I really liked the Synergy ZenQ desktop interface. And I think a lot of the things that they have learned from the smaller interfaces have finally kind of crept up and bled over and really made an appearance in the new Gen 4 Orion 32 Plus. Now, some key differences between the Orion 32 Plus Gen 3 and Gen 4 is that the Gen 3 had 64 channels of I/O, whereas the Gen 4 has 128 channels of I/O. Also, the original Gen 3's converters were about 120 dB of dynamic range. Gen 4 ups that to 130 dB of dynamic range, which is a ton of dynamic range. Now, something that was really pushed and kind of spotlighted in the Gen 3 Orion 32 Plus was the fact that it had real-time effects plugins, and that is no longer a thing anymore. And we will get to that in just a little bit when we check out the new updated control panel. However, that is more, that is not really a thing as far as the real-time monitoring plugins. It was kind of clunky anyways. However, I think this is a really great call. Now, also I want to note that the Gen 4 also has DC coupled inputs and outputs, so you can hook up VCAs in order to control outboard synth gear as well. So synth community, they got you as well. So this is the new updated control panel for the Orion 32 Plus Gen 4. Now you will notice it's significantly different than the previous control panel for the Gen 3 Orion. Now, this is how I have my patch bay set up. However, you can now view and not view the inputs and outputs that you want to see. Now, previous to this, you were stuck looking at all the inputs and outputs and trying to find your way around the inputs that were applicable to you, and it was pretty overwhelming. Now, you can simply just hide the stuff that you're not using and you don't want to see. And that's exactly what I've done. I am not using any more than 32 inputs, so I have the one row open, and it's awesome. Now, you will also notice that the control panel no longer has the AFX mixer. Before, you had to route into the mixer in order to use the built-in plugins that came with real-time processing that the Gen 3 had. Well, the Gen 4 doesn't have that, and ergo, each mix 1, 2, 3, and 4 that we're all familiar with is your mixer. So if I go to the mixer view, this is my mix 1 mix, and I can go over here in the top right, and I can just click on my various mixers for my different mixes that I have in my routing down here at the bottom. This is a much simpler way to do things, and this is awesome. You have global trims, and then up here is the session, and now you can save the individual sessions per the slots on the front of the interface right here in the control panel. I thought this was really nicely done. Okay, so now let's talk about the surround tab. Now, the surround tab is unlockable. It is an unlockable feature, and once you do unlock it, it's a whole new world in the surround sound world, audio. There are a multitude of different configurations from the 9.1.6 Dolby Atmos all the way down to just regular stereo. Now for my own setup, I have what's technically referred to as a 2.1 setup. I have a left, right, and a sub. And the Orion 32 Plus Gen 4 gives you total control over all aspects of your surround setup. So I can go into an individual left, right, sub monitoring system. I can control the crossover of the low end. I can control different frequencies depending on, if I want to fine tune individual speakers, I can do that in the control software. How cool is that? I can then bypass anything I want. I can put it back to the way it was. I can do anything I need to do sonically per individual listening source in the surround tab. This is where all the business happens if you're doing anything surround related. Lastly, we have the upper left, we have the meters, which you can see me talking through the Gen 4 right now. We have the ADAT, and then we also have the SPDIF. Now, I want to note that the Gen 3 Orion 32 Plus had sample rate conversion, meaning you could be at, for example, a 48K sample rate and have a 44.1 digital come in through the SPDIF, and it would convert it automatically. The Gen 4 no longer does that, okay? So if you're like me, who are using the, for example, Universal Audio aux box, which only spits out digital at 44.1 for some reason, you can no longer use the digital out of the aux box. You have to use the XLR analog output, okay? That is something to be aware of. I have no idea why they didn't include SRC in the Gen 4 Orion 32 Plus. However, this control panel is much more streamlined and laid out in just a really nice fashion. Yeah, I really like it. So let's talk about how I am using the Orion 32 Plus Gen 4. I have what's called a hybrid setup. I'm using plugins along with some particular pieces of outboard equipment. I like hardware compressors. I like my API 2500 Plus. I like my Rupert Neve Master Bus Compressor. I like my TK Audio THD1, and I like my Elysia Expressor for particularly vocals. And so this is where the conversion really comes in for me, is I have 130 dB of headroom and I have crystal clear conversion. So that way I'm not affecting my sound when I don't want to affect my sound, if that makes sense. So with this hybrid setup, I'm able to just kind of lean on the Orion, and I have presets within Logic, and I am just selecting an in and out, and in my preset, it's just the name of the hardware that I want to use as an insert. And that's it. My audio goes out of the Orion into the hardware compressor and then back in, and it's so clean and so nice sounding. I love it. And lastly, this thing costs $3,295. The amount of bang for the buck you get with this interface is incredible. Every interface maker has a thing that they do better than anyone else, and Antelope really does this with the routing and the internal patching, and they really have that streamlined and figured out, in my opinion, and it has never been easier to just kind of route anything anywhere. And the clocking is still incredible, crisp, clean conversion, and yeah, it's awesome. I've been using it a lot with my hybrid setup, with a lot of outboard gear, a lot of preamps, a lot of compressors that I use for my mixes. And it just sounds huge. It just sounds clean, and I'll be using this for years to come. I will link down below in the description if you'd like to know more information on the new Gen 4 Antelope Orion 32 Plus interface. And with that, you've been wonderful. I've been Fluff. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.